Welcome to another episode of the Power Connector podcast. I'm your host, Derek Dickow, and with me today is my dear friend, Blake George of BMG Media Co. Blake has been in the website development business, an entrepreneur for, I want to say, 20 years. Would that be
aging me? I wanted to say 15, but I think you're right. It might be 20 at
It
this
might be
point.
20. I mean,
Yeah.
you started in high school.
Yeah.
Blake, let's just get started from the top. Give me an idea of your professional journey up to this point. I mean, it's been amazing to see what you've built over the years. Always cutting edge, restaurants, entrepreneur. Give us a little snapshot where you're at today.
You got it. Well, my career started very early. I was, typical in our culture. You start working when you're 2 years old, or you can start walking, right? So early on, we had a lot of businesses as a family, and the goal was each kid kind of worked in every facet of the business to learn. Right? Wasn't great. Learned accounting, be in the warehouse, sweep the floors, whatever it took. You learn very quickly what you want to do in life and what you don't want to do in life, right? And what your path is. So, throughout the younger years, you go through that trial and error every summer, make the sacrifices. And, through the college years, always entrepreneurial again, always trying to make a buck here and there, whatever it was, throwing parties or finding sponsors to do different events and kind of learning from other people that were older than me. I was kind of ahead of my time, I would think. And then after college, right in the recession, right? 2009, I graduated Michigan State, came back to work with the family office, said, what am I going to do? Right? I was always looking to making my own name for myself instead of kind of following the footsteps. So I always said, I have great leaders ahead of me. My father and my grandfather, both successful. And I never wanted to be that guy where people said, how are you going to fill those shoes? Right? My mindset was always, why would I need to fill those shoes? Why can't I stand next to them? Right? So how do I make my own path? And then in 2009, I started my business, BMG Media. As you know, our goal was to build websites for people. At the time I was working, we had a magazine, 6 Degrees. I know you remember.
I remember it well.
Years ago. It was an advertising-based business, right? So advertisers, print, at that time, digital was taking off. You didn't have a website, that was like the boom, right? So go to those advertisers, hey, we can build a website. First year, knocked it out of the park, profitable. At that point, my grandfather fired me from the family companies, left his office in tears, didn't know what to do. I was 21 years old, thought I had everything, and kind of got taken away from me, right? It was the best thing that ever happened to me. From that point on, I kind of felt what I thought was my bottom, right? And continuously grew from there. And, I think every entrepreneur at some point, it's happened to all of us, right? You go in the roller coaster, the great times, then, you get down and you're like, hey, what's going on? How do I pay this bill? What's going to happen next month? The deal's going to keep coming, et cetera, et cetera. And you just keep going. I think that's what drives everybody, right? It always ends up working out one way or the other. So, for the last, countless years, I guess we've been building BMG Media. And from that, dealing with multiple industries and different companies that are unique in their own different ways, right? And our magic is applying what we do in other industries and what we've learned from other customers for any new customer that comes on board. Our knowledge of the companies that we've dealt with is just exponential at this point, right? So how do we continuously grow, apply, make something cutting edge? When you look at different things, in the tech world, obviously everything's more cutting edge, right? Then you go into healthcare or, insurance, and they're 20, 30 years behind. So now you can start applying principles to kind of advance them a little bit. And obviously COVID at this point now advanced kind of everybody, right, with the digital age. But that's always been unique to us. So, from that, different investments obviously just come from networking and meeting new customers, right? And doors open that you never really saw before. And you do what you got to do.
I want to get to the story of the family at some point here because it's important, not just for who you are and where you come from, but the family's impacted a lot of people, including myself and thousands of others, including the people that work for the family of companies over the years. But give us a snapshot. So you told us a little bit about how you got here, but tell us a little bit more about what's new and exciting for BMG. Like what What is cutting edge for you today? What are you up to?
So AI, 100%, right? Artificial intelligence just taking the world by storm. We've been dealing with it for years, but now it's really become mainstream, where more people are using it, right? The chat GBTs of the world and, Midjourney or any other tools that are coming out. I mean, every day we learn about a new tool. So our goal at the company is, weekly we're researching, before we get to actual work, right? The whole team is learning about something new. And AI is just, I mean, there's so many ways to automate your business, to enhance your business, to save time. I've integrated AI in my daily practice. I mean, it's probably saved me hours of work every day, right? So that's incredible. And I'm not a bill by hour kind of guy, but I do value time in a way that, just not only for the mental breakdown of having to like type emails out and think of how you want to structure something, it just opens a door of kind of breaking that writer's block, specifically for me. And then utilizing those tools just to kind of give you a head start of what you're trying to get accomplished.
How can somebody that's somebody who's thinking about maybe incorporating AI into their business, unknowing of where they're coming to us from in what their industry or what their growth or goals are, how can they leverage AI to help them save time and like we refer to brain damage?
Right. So I think that, at some point it's going to be so common, like using social media, everyone will be using AI, right? They're already using it. They just probably don't realize it, but the tools enhancing them. And obviously every company and every person's different, how they utilize certain things, right? You see some people, their email boxes have 10,000 emails unread. Others have 0, right? It's just a different personality of how people operate. And I think that, anybody can utilize AI to help them write better, help them research better, right? And maybe that would then take them to the next step of how they can use a tool to enhance their business. But it gets really deep, right? At some point, you're an expert in networking, right? Your Rolodex came from pieces of paper to now something digital, whether it's LinkedIn, your iPhone, whatever it is. At some point, AI is going to take over where you say, hey, find everybody that is in commercial real estate in my Rolodex that deals over 25 million, right? And AI will be able to basically sort through everything in an instant and get you data, which may have taken you or somebody that works for you hours to put that list together if you weren't organized. So I think the organization factor is going to be huge for a lot of people because that's really where you can enhance your time.
So let's talk a little bit about time. And obviously I'm a networking guy. Relationship development is important to me and to our business. You and I always talk about, ultimately it's not companies buying from companies, it's people that buy from people, and our ability to build relationships thinking long term is what can help us, you said it before we started, to exponentially grow our business and whatever we're focused on. How can we leverage AI to help us with networking?
So, follow-ups obviously after you meet somebody are important, right? What's the right thing to say? How do you talk to somebody in a way that's going to be genuine, right? And I think that, utilizing services like a chat GBT, for example, you write an email, you then take it to ChatGPT and say, hey, write this more professionally or more relaxed, make it more fun. Whatever prompt you want to use to kind of get to that customer. Maybe they're in a specific industry and, hey, give us a tidbit about that industry so I can kind of throw it in there and show some credibility, right? So in networking, there's a few things that are important to me. I think the success in networking is being genuine, right? You have to be genuine to that person so you have instant connection. Building credibility of some degree is extremely important. I'm lucky now at this point in my career that I have some sort of credibility that I can lean on. Earlier in the career, what was that, right? Like, how do you build that credibility? So once you are credible, I think those people start taking you more serious, right? And, again, utilizing, I keep going back to ChatGPT because it's obviously probably the biggest out there, right? I mean, there's obviously tons of tools, but utilizing it in a way that, just, hey, set reminders to follow up with this person. Hey, how do you put it in a CRM for yourself to say, this guy told me this, right? Here's my notes. Let's automate things so that I can just send an email to myself and it automatically puts it in a folder so I can utilize it later. I mean, there's trillions of possibilities, almost infinite possibilities of how somebody could use it. And that's why AI is so powerful. So yes, you and I will use it every day, but the new job role is an AI expert, right? Engineers are going to be AI prompt generators or experts that are going to come in and automate your business. And a lot of people, there's two mindsets on AI. Is it taking over the world? 100%. But it's just like the Industrial Revolution or any other advancement in technology. You just adapt to it. So, in my business, anybody can build a website, right? You can go on website builders and you could do it yourself.
Mm.
There's still the advancement of what we do with customizing and making things a little more complex, where at some point, yes, everyone can use AI, but can you really use AI, right? Like how much further can you go where you're going to need a professional to basically say, hey, this is what I know. This is how I do it. Example, Excel, use it all the time, right? You may be very good at Excel. You're like 1%. No, you know 1% about Excel compared to the people out there that are utilizing to like the maximum potential. And that's where we're going to see the industry go to, right? You're going to be hiring AI experts if you aren't already today.
So the notion of just using Chat GPT or AI to help in business, forget about it. You have to do it these days. It's a part of
For sure.
Yeah, it's
And
going
it's
to
being integrated in tools, right? So, a lot of people use Notion, for example, as a great tool. AI generating in Notion, Microsoft Word, Microsoft Excel, Chat GPT extension, automatically rewrite, utilizing AI to some degree. And what's interesting is AI will learn your style, right? So now it's going to write on your behalf, or you can write as a Harvard professional or a lawyer or whatever persona you want to be at that point in time. It can write on that behalf, because to be honest with you, in business, you're wearing multiple hats. You almost have to be a chameleon to some point, because you just talk to different people different ways, because that's how, that's how you vibe.
And part of the communication, or what you called it earlier, it's prompting
Yeah.
appropriately. Speak in this
Yes.
format.
Yes.
Speak with an MBA degree. Speak with a law degree. The possibility, and I've tried this, and I'm sure some of the people listening in today have tried AI at home. It is incredible the time you can condense.
Crazy.
I think to create a first draft,
For sure.
or maybe even a second draft, or to condense this 500 word thesis or storyline into maybe 150 words.
Yeah.
I mean, the possibilities.
So I'll tell you
It's just endless.
three use cases I used it for. That saved me a ton of time. I had
One second.
oh, go ahead.
Mark, we're going to rephrase this part here, right here. I want to prompt him right here.
Go ahead.
What are the top 3 ways that we could use AI in business today?
So I'll tell you 3 ways that I personally have used it, and whether it was personal or business, how I save time. I had a commercial lease. I had an issue with an electrical panel. I want to say, is it my responsibility or is it the landlord's responsibility? Uploaded my lease to ChatGPT. I said, break this down for me and tell me, is it my responsibility or the landlord's responsibility to fix the electrical panel? Read through the whole lease. Boom, boom, boom. Bullet point. Section 2. Here's where it states that electrical panel. And, you could do a control find. You could probably find it a little bit, but it's in multiple spots in the document. So that was one way where I was like, boom, right away. I mean, you could take the whole lease and say, hey, break this down for a kindergartner, right? And it gives you that bullet points of kind of knowing what you are. You talked about first draft, second draft. It gets you there. You can't just rely 100% on it, because it doesn't know everything that's, you did on a handshake or you talked about. So you really have to make sure you're not just trusting AI to make your decisions. The other day I was on a Delta flight. I had a terrible experience. We were delayed hours, canceled flight, all that stuff, right? They bumped me seats. It was a whole mess. They just said, hey, to get a refund, please submit a ticket to Delta. So now I'm already annoyed. I have to go do this. Not the greatest writer myself. I got to go sit there for 45 minutes trying to see what I want to type. My blood's boiling. How do you word this in a way where you're going to not just be, an ass, to use a better word, right? ChatGPT, here's what happened. Write me a professional complaint letter. Boom, 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 30 seconds, submitted. So in that, a 5-minute task for me there was probably a 45-minute task if I had to just sit at my desk while my emails are pouring in, while customers need me. It was amazing, right? So
saving time.
I mean, saving time, generating taglines for new customers just to get kind of your brain working. Again, not copy and paste. Utilizing words in ways that are, you wouldn't think of it, right? Like being kind of catchy or punny, right? So it's, we use that a lot with the restaurants. Like, how do we utilize, consistently generate content? Because it gets stale after a while. You're always going to post the same thing, right? We're in Asian food business. How much sushi can I just keep pushing out there? It's at some point, there's only so much you can do, right? So utilizing that to get new ideas, it's pretty cool.
Would you consider using AI to help you build relationships with others? And if so, how?
Yeah, let me think about that. I would say 100%. What would be the best way to build a relationship? I would probably myself utilize it more for combing through data to kind of give me the right answer. Meaning, hey, at some point, I don't know if this exists today, I'm sure it does, but scrub through my LinkedIn, right? Find me all the connections I have that are in X, Y, and C industry. That way I can now sort properly, kind of download a list of what I need and then kind of sort through it and then generate me an email, template to send to these people based off of our connections and how long we've been in business how long we've known each other or, talk about their latest post on LinkedIn to make it a little more genuine, right? There's so many tips and tricks so that this doesn't look like a cold call.
Let me switch gears. You started today's conversation talking about the family of companies, working for the family after you graduated from MSU, 2009. That's right around the time that I was showing up to your grandpa's and father's office for some advice and for some support with what I was working on back then. Give us just a quick snapshot of what that was like growing up in the George household with the different enterprises, the variety of businesses and industries that you guys were involved in.
Yeah. So, we were involved in almost every industry. Some I'm still learning about today, before my time. My grandfather, was born here. His brothers and sisters were born in Iraq, as obviously his parents. Came in 1932, I believe. Dirt poor, living 100 people in a house, and just a different lifestyle. He truly had the American dream. He started with a milk route and built it into, a multi-million-dollar enterprise that they later sold to a multi-billion-dollar company. And through those years, obviously, with a lot of connections, helping a lot of people, gained a lot of respect. And, one thing that our family and my grandfather always taught us, and dad instilled, and uncles and all that stuff, is always be humble, have humility, compassion for people. We had employees, one recently just passed that was with us for 50 plus years, right? 3 generations of people that she worked with in the family, which is, not many people can say that. The trend of, a first generation making it, right? Then it goes to the second generation. The failure rate is significantly high. Third generation is like even higher, above 90%, I believe is a statistic, right? So all the odds are against you. And, I grew up in an area that there was multiple generational, wealth. And you look around and you say, it's very easy to see how things can spiral out of control, right? And at a young age, I even looked at it, going to Cranbrook, always surrounded by successful people, learning from everybody and different stories, right? And you realize that you really do need to figure out a path and really learn from every mistake, right? Nobody's perfect. Everybody's made mistakes in this world. And all of our companies, we've had ups and downs, right? We've been successful and we've always bounced back. But if you don't have the respect and the humility, really, where's it going to take you? You look at a lot of people now that are so wealthy and they have no friends. Whoever wants to be like that, right? So I think that was one thing really that we learned from our grandfather is that, it didn't matter how old you were, he was a helping hand, right? And you know that best, right? And he treated everybody with respect. And that's one thing that, I continuously try to improve upon. That and answering people's phone calls within 24 hours. It's a family rule. We always have to return that, right?
It's a great rule, yeah.
So, all the different businesses that we had really helped me build my career actually because, I learned so much in these different industries before I started my career. So when somebody would call me and say, hey, I have a manufacturing company and this is what we do. And I said, awesome. I already know exactly what's going on here in the back of my mind, of course, right? And I'm able to architect what they need from a digital perspective and kind of bring it to light. So extremely helpful. My grandfather obviously has passed now. It's been almost probably 9 or 10 years.
June of 14.
2014, yeah. So 9 years, yeah. And they were coming up on 9 years. Wow.
Yeah.
It seems like yesterday. We were very close, as you know, right? So, you just learn whatever you can. The old timers just did things differently. Imagine they built these multi-million-dollar businesses barely having computers. And now we have artificial intelligence. It's wild. And you're talking about 30, 40-year difference.
Even less.
Even less.
Yeah.
So, no emails, barely had phones to, text messaging, none of that. So, you look back and you say, how did they do it, right? We're so spoiled now, but we have to embrace it. Even my grandfather at old age, he was on his iPhone. He embraced it. He wasn't one of those guys that just said, this is how I did it back in the day. He moved forward. And I kind of always think about that as well. You mentioned cutting edge earlier as well. I'm always looking for the next best thing, because if you're not optimizing with the times, you're just going to get replaced, right? You're going to get run over. So, AI is that topic today, right? Not to harp on it too much, but what's in 5 years, 10 years, who knows? Virtual reality, augmented reality, all those things are going to be huge.
Yeah, but most importantly, getting back to, it's cutting edge today, but back then they didn't have more than what their word was, right? That's
Right.
all that they could
Totally.
offer. And I remember there's a couple times I was sitting in your grandpa's office, and he gave me an open door policy to talk community and humanitarian issues and politics, which was important to me then and still today. But I remember he would take calls in between. Just a second, Bernie says I got to take the call. So he who you were referencing a few minutes ago, and he'd take the call and he would troubleshoot for people. And what's the problem with this banker? And what's the problem with your loan? And what's the problem with the business? And give me a snapshot of where you're at today. And he was always thinking about ways that he can add value to others. And I think that plus the 24-hour rule of calling people back is I think an important part of relationships.
Well, and that's, part of that, the network thing, right, is so big, because at some point in your career, if you're doing the right thing, right, and you build your network, you end up becoming a mediator or a consultant, right? And even in my business now with web development, I've now become a consultant more so than building websites, right? That's our core. But you're able to guide people in a way, say, hey, don't make this mistake. I've already experienced it with these two companies, and here's why, right? Or you have a problem with this company. I work with both of them. He's a great guy. Let me just figure it out. The other day, I had a company call me, or a business partner call me and said, hey, we have an issue. I think you know the guy. Can you kind of see what's going on? And, through a network of friends, we got to the right guys. And, it ended up being two employees at two different companies having an issue where the two bosses that I was kind of a middle ground for came together and said, no need to get lawyers involved. No reason to waste time. Shake hands, get it done, and a 5-minute phone call instead of a 5-month litigation, right? So do those happen every day? No, but my grandpa was very good at that stuff. He was always mediating. So maybe that's why naturally I kind of see it and I understand it. But you always want to help out, right? Like, we're in a community building thing. So the more you network, I mentioned earlier, networking is one of those things that is exponential. And not many things in this world are exponential. So you meet a new person, their whole network just opened up to you. You just exponentially grew your network by one door, right? So it's really interesting to see how you can build and build and build. But the number one rule is you have to have a good reputation, because nobody's going to introduce you to anybody if you don't have a great reputation, right? So I think that, the one thing that always sticks out to me is making sure, no matter what I do, whether right or wrong, I always try to do the right thing, right? Even if I was in the wrong, own up to it, because my reputation means more than anything. And in our business, I tell every customer that comes to us, if you don't like what we're doing for you, if it's not the right fit, if we're just not getting along, I'd rather give you all your money back, shake hands, go buy you a dinner or a beer, and move on, right?
Sure.
Because that's the right way to do it. We're not here just to take somebody's money and not have them have that value, right? How do you add that extra value? And just that one tidbit gives you that credibility. People are like, you really do that? Absolutely. Why would I want to ruin my reputation for, over money? That's horrible.
I remember your grandpa at one point, he advised me not to get involved in mediating, because it's not something it's not something he ever sought out or enjoyed, but he knew that people were coming to him in many cases out of desperation.
Yeah.
And frustration.
Well, I'll tell you, I definitely don't go looking for it.
Yeah.
But, if there's, if you can help people and it's an easy way, I think, it's kind of just like something you just have to do, right? I mean, two good people, you don't want them to be in that situation and just, it's horrible to see. But if you can help, great. If not, sometimes you just say, hey, keep me out of this.
Yeah.
Right?
No,
that's okay too.
I got to move on. What was some of your best piece of advice? I mean, obviously there's some hard rules for the family. I love the 24-hour rule, humility and honoring your reputation. What about advice did you get maybe from your father, grandfather, or maybe others in your life as you develop relationships with people along your journey?
Yeah, absolutely. So, the number one thing is age doesn't matter, especially more today, right? I always look at the older generation as well. You learn so much from these guys, But even younger people younger than me, you learn so much. I would think, one thing that I always thought when I was younger is it doesn't matter who the person is, what they're doing, whether it's good, bad, horrible, you always learn. I learned, hey, don't do that, right? Or hey, this is great. And this path, you learn from everything. It doesn't always have to just be good things and successful people. You learn from everybody, right? And you talked about younger generation, like what kind of advice would you give to somebody? When you're younger, you don't, although you have responsibility, you don't have as much responsibility. As you get older, potentially you have a family life, right? You start having kids, different responsibilities start coming your way. It's harder to take risks as you age. And if I could go back, I wish that I invested every single dollar I had in my early 20s. Didn't matter if I lost it or not, because you'll never have those chances again, right? Now you worry about kids, school, putting food on the table. Those are real responsibilities. When it's just yourself, you can take those risks and you'll figure it out. But caring for other people is a whole other level of, a task that daunts on you and probably everybody, right? Because unless you're extremely selfish, you're always thinking about others versus yourself. So, for the younger generation, you can't be afraid, right? I mean, whether you're networking, as long as you're doing the right thing, you're working hard, people appreciate people putting in the effort. But you work smart, don't work hard. I know people that wake up at 5 a.m, they don't go home until 9 o'clock at night. But I look back at them and I say, you know what? They're working hard, but they're really not working smart. So what are they really accomplishing? You have other guys that are done by noon, super successful because they got the rhythm down, right? So, once you find your path early on, that's the key. Learn everything early on so that you can set yourself up. The best advice somebody gave me was anything you do today or tomorrow is for 10 years from now, right? Whether you buy a building, you invest in a new company, nothing happens overnight. Yes, there's some get-rich-quick schemes that happen. They never pan out, right? You look at the industries in the past, the mortgage industry, the cannabis industry, ton of money really fast, all disappeared really fast, right? How do you set yourself up from 10 years from now? Because that's the key. So I'm 36 today. Every deal I'm making, I'm looking at where do I want to be when I'm 46 and kind of work backwards from there.
That's a good approach, thinking in things of 10-year prisms. Give us a snapshot of what the next 24 months looks like for you.
Great question. Well, I look 10 years out, so I got to think about how I go.
Yeah.
Years,
Can you
right?
minimize
Yeah.
it to just 2?
Well, now, as I gotten older and my business has grown, I look at obviously different investments, right? In timing industry as much as I can. Now we're on a cash hold, hoping for some of the real estate market to show some skills so we can make some purchases. It ends up becoming a tax play, right? Working with depreciation and how you utilize different scenarios to benefit yourself and kind of utilize your money to make more money. That's always the game. So when you're building your business in the beginning, everything goes back into your business. Then once you get extra cash flow, how do you utilize that cash flow so you're not paying a ton of taxes and you can leverage it to kind of grow, right? Safely, hopefully, right? Somewhat conservatively. So my next 24 months, I'm in the pet business now. We're opening 10 vet clinics. That's going to be a big priority for us. We're opening one next month. So I'm hoping to open up one every 5 to 6 months is the plan. So the next 24 months probably focus on that. Then a few franchise opportunities we have in the goldfish swim schools and things like that, we'll probably open up another 2. So we'll be busy on construction on that stuff. But in the personal portfolio, real estate's always top of mind now.
Let me ask a question on mentorship along the way. I mean, it's nice to have, obviously, family that can serve as mentors, whether it's uncles or dad or grandpa. But have you developed relationships outside with mentors that are important to you? And how have you gone about developing relationships with people that can mentor you?
Absolutely. It's a very important part. My family's unbelievable, but somewhat biased, right? I get in arguments with my dad. We go have dinner after. Everything's fine. But his mindset compared to mine are sometimes different. He could be in wealth preservation mode. I'm in growth mode. We're at different stages of our lives. We're business partners, right? And I listen to everybody around me, right? And what I've developed with mentorships, there's a few people that stick out that I lean on more and more now. One of my brother-in-laws, Clint Menser, very well. Family, but outside my family business, easy to ask him, hey, what would you do in this situation? Kevin Denha, in the real estate business. He's very close with my uncle. He's been friends for 50 plus years, right? Another great one. You know my family. Here's my situation. How would you handle it, right? Because it's a different perspective of me asking one of my uncles, how should we do this, right?
Mm.
And they've been unbelievable. Gary Wiseman, I call a lot, you know, master in the construction world, right? How would you handle this, Gary? I'm very close with his son. So different people in different sectors of their life, they're always open to mentoring. People are, you know, I found that just ask the question, they're always there.
Mm.
Sabra Mori, I've been doing some deals with, awesome mentor. This guy's super successful. He gets it, right? He knows what's going on. And, you know, you're in deals that, you know, how do we leverage our networks, right? Or how do we leverage our expertise? How do I bring what I know? You bring your value, right? Any of these and bring it out. Me and Click got in business together with the restaurants. Master at real estate, master at construction with Kenny, right? Master at all these things. What were they not masters at? Marketing and branding. I fit right in, right? So bringing technology, AI now, all these different factors, that's what makes great partnerships. So it's very tough for families, right? Not many family businesses last because at some point the families get so large that it's not a family business anymore.
Yeah, you have competing interests.
Correct.
Some cousins are not working as much as the other ones.
Absolutely. So, you know, that was something that early on that my grandfather always instilled in us. He's like, hey, build your own path. You'll always have family businesses, but we don't know what that means, right? And I'm very involved, but at the same time, I know, hey, what if it's not there? What do I do for myself and how do I grow? So utilizing mentors is, I mean, there's not going to be a stage in my life where I won't have people I talk to or reference and mentor. And it doesn't matter how successful or not successful they are, always learn from them, right?
Are there some mentors that you maybe do not know personally, that don't know your family, that haven't met you yet, that maybe you've sought out or seek out because they can now provide you at this stage in your career advice that you think is important to your development? If so, how do you cultivate relationships with those people?
Yeah. So interesting enough, we have another deal we're working on, me and my cousin Lorenzo, called Racino. It's a blockchain game. We knew nothing about the blockchain, knew nothing about the gaming industry, and we just jumped right in, right? Especially Lorenzo. It's very important because networking in a new industry, which is Web3, which is another up and coming similar to AI, right? Kind of interconnected in a way, and blockchain. Don't know anybody, but there's all these people out there that have vast knowledge. They've been in it for a while and they're kind of like the pioneers, right? So having no personal connection to them, they have no idea who we are. They can Google us and see what they see, make their own, you know, assumptions about us. But that industry is so new that just reaching out on LinkedIn saying, hey, would love to have a conversation. Here's what I'm working on. You know, you seem to be an expert. It's unbelievable how many people responded back. Absolutely. Let's get on the phone. Let's talk. Let's have a Zoom. I feel like in other industries that are more established, probably a little harder. You know, could I call a billionaire real estate guy and say, hey, I need 5 minutes of your time? They'd be like, listen, dude, you know, kick rocks, right? In Web3, up and coming, everybody's opened the doors. And what happens is you start connecting with them on LinkedIn, right? Talk about this networking and bring it back. Connect with this guy, connect with that guy. This guy's a beast in the industry. Now, when you start opening these doors and you start going after people you don't know and kind of cold calling, say, hey, do you have 5 minutes to talk? Oh, you're connected with this guy? Yeah, I talked to him last week. No problem. So the credibility starts building up because now they think you're in the, you know, you're in the circle. And
the circle he's referring to is commonly referred to as the transient property of trust, right? Leveraging relational capital in order to get to somebody that you want to
absolutely
do business with.
And I would say in my 20 years in my professional career, I'd never utilized that method. And now I'm seeing it really come to fruition. And probably, you know, LinkedIn, obviously, you know, 20 years ago was probably nothing. Now it's a lot easier to collaborate and find things, but find people. But I mean, there's so many people that just open up doors. And every conversation I had, and this is important, was, hey, if you can't help me, let me know if you can introduce me to somebody that you think would be interesting. And every meeting we've had, and it's been 200-300 meetings, have introduced us to one or more people every single time. And that's huge, right? Because now you never know where those doors are open. And people email, I had an email yesterday from a guy we talked to months ago. Hey, how's the project going? Great. Just thought of a new person I think you should connect with. And this was like 6 months later, connected us with somebody, and let's see where it goes. So that's the long-term game in this in networking, right? You know that best. And it's really interesting to see how everything comes to life. And the more you can utilize knowledge and mentors, it's like a cheat code.
Yeah.
right? Like, what are you shy about? They've already made the mistakes. And a lot of times when we go in these conversations, the first thing I say to the VCs and these founders, I say, teach me how to not make the same mistakes you already made. And they all appreciate it, right? Right away, they know what my goal is. And that's all I want to do is not make the same mistakes somebody else already made.
I'm actually just writing that down because I think that that's probably the most important message that we could ever repurpose and reshare to others is teach me how not to make the same mistakes you made.
Absolutely.
And everybody makes them and everybody learns from each other. And the idea is to condense time frames with what we're trying to focus on.
And you get different perspectives from different people, right? Even if they're successful, what were the bumps? How do we change things? What did your customers get upset about that you had to rapidly move, right? What was the emergency situations? It's interesting to look back and you say, oh yeah, I remember that. That's what you guys did. And how did you, tackle the situation? So, I mean, you're saving tons of money, tons of time.
And most importantly, brain damage.
And brain damage.
And brain damage. Yeah. Well, this has been a great conversation with you today. I'm confident we'll do it again. There's a lot to cover with what you're focused on in your business and what the access and resources that you have, and what we're trying to accomplish with this interview and with these what I like to call curiosity conversations. Right? It's me coming from a perspective of wanting to learn what you know, and to share that information and to help us all leverage.
Well, vice versa.
Yeah,
like to learn what you know.
We learn from each other.
Yeah.
Well, I hope you've enjoyed this episode of the Power Connector podcast. My guest today, Blake George, President and CEO of BMG Media Co, cutting edge company developing websites on the forefront of AI technology and probably 100 businesses that he probably can't cover today. It's been a pleasure and honor, Blake, and I know I'll see you soon.
Thanks.
Thank you,
Derek.
Hope you enjoyed the Power Connector podcast. I'm Derek Dickow, and we'll see you soon.